In this video, I set up my bullet journal for February. As you can probably tell from the backdrop, I chose steampunk as my theme. Don't forget to leave a like to help fight the algorithm. Steampunk is this intriguing conceptual construct of how people from the 21st century imagine how those living in the 19th century during the Victorian Age have imagined their own future. It is in no way a reality, it rather is an alternate timeline of an alternate future starting in the 19th century, in which technology did not take the shape of blue light and touch screens, but rather of metal, gears, gargoyles, and the mechanisms that make watches function. So it is basically a mechanical instead of a digital technological future. I start out with my monthly overview spread with a calendar. I prefer simple vertical calendars, and I really like these stickers with the dates on it because I don't have to write all of the numbers out. The sticker I place in the center of the calendar spread to divide the calendar into sections. I use these separate sections for professional events on the left-hand side and private stuff to the right, but you could customize that to whatever you need. Next to that, I drew out a simple grid that is going to be my habit trackers. I find it really practical to include them into the monthly calendar instead of setting up a bunch of individual calendars just for the trackers. Now that I have set up all the important parts of the spread, I can fill in the remaining space with decorations. Lately, I have really enjoyed vintage paper collages that I saw online, and that inspired me to include this into my steampunk theme. But there can't be a steampunk theme without some gears being involved. So I thought it might be a good idea to not just glue on or draw in some gears, but also having a soft backdrop of them. So I cut out these gear shapes and used them as a stencil to apply distress ink on the page. In case you don't know, distress ink is basically like an ink pad for stamps that you apply with a little sponge on paper to make it look more aged. I don't have a lot of experience with that medium yet, and this time I learned that when you have a bunch of ink accumulated at one spot and cannot manage to distribute it with the sponge, it is a very bad idea to get water involved. But no worries, later I will cover it up with a sticker. I do not change out my habit trackers a lot. Most of the trackers that I use, such as keeping up with the news or not eating past 8 p.m., I basically have it every month, and I believe that it takes a lot of time to truly establish a habit. So I decided to just stick to it and stick focusing on these until they are truly established habits. On the right-hand side, next to the calendar, I like to have an overview page where I can write down all the big things that come up for the month. Only that this time I decided to call it Blackboard because I thought it would be more fitting for the theme. The paperclip on the top I basically stole from my mom because I saw it in one of her setups and I really liked how it looked, so I copied it. So thanks, Mom. To make everything look a little more vintagey, I also inked the edges with the distress ink, and I really like how the aged look came out. Just like the gears and clocks, I printed out the letters and cut them out to glue them on. The next spread is meant to be my brain dump spread. I actually don't just use it for brain dump, but for all sorts of things that I might want to write down throughout the month that are not suitable for any category or any other place where they could go. It is quite difficult to find an appropriate header for this, so I decided to just embellish the center of the page a little bit and leave the rest of the room for my writing without any header at all. Another thing that I decided to include is a water tracker. These first drops of water came out a little weird though, so later I covered them up and I decided to just go for circles. So every corner is meant for 1 week, 4 weeks in February, and I will slowly fill up each cycle just with black ink as I drink. And hopefully this will help me to stay hydrated because I never manage to drink enough. Next to that, I have my expense tracker. I really find it quite beautiful how these sort of half translucent whitish stickers look on top of a paper collage, where the collage and the edges and transitions from paper to paper still shine through, but still you got like this beautiful seahorse there. My spendings I track according to the main categories that I spent money on. These are of course food, then transportation. For the theme though, I thought the word travel would be a little nicer. Consumption, or just stuff that I buy, and whatever other things come up. And at the bottom of the page, I give myself some room to calculate everything at the end of the month. Over the course of the last 6 months, I have developed a system where I set up all 4 weeks at once and bind them together into one section with 4 tabs. So first I have to cut out the tabs and then I color them in. The last page I don't want to be cut down at the side, so I don't cut out the tab, but in order to still create the tab, I just drew it on the page. I not only like the look of the tabs and the way how it looks organized and clean and nice, I also think that, at least for me, it is quite practical, or more practical, to really set up all weeks at once so that I don't have to come back to my journal in the middle of the month to create new weeks, or I'm never at a point where I cannot start planning the next week because I haven't set it up yet. Everything is done after I did my setup and I don't have to worry about anything, and I can just use my journal. And if there is ever the need for more space in between, or the need to set up like a new collection or list like in between certain weeks, I'm just going to flip the page and start writing on a new page. I couldn't make a steampunk theme without including a dragon. And this has to do with the way how I was introduced to steampunk. This was at a festival in the Netherlands that is called Castlefest, where bands that play medieval pop and neo-pagan music play. People that go on that festival like to dress up in certain ways, and I did too and enjoyed that a lot. And that is where I first saw people dressed up in steampunk style. I did find them very beautiful, and I also appreciated all the effort that went into the costumes, and most of their accessories were not bought but self-made, and I really loved and appreciated that. But of course you could also buy things, so the materials that you see here, like the 2 dresses, the white dress and the one with the gears, these are actually dresses that I bought on the festival. And the head and the choker I bought later on. But back to the festival, so there were also a lot of fantasy-loving people, and many of them had little dragons like pets sitting on their shoulders, like punks who have their rats on their shoulder. So these were basically stuffed dragons with risers, something that would make them sit comfortably on your shoulder. And I thought this was so cute, and I sort of connect steampunk and the Castlefest and everything with dragons and with these little shoulder dragons. When I came back to the festival another time, I actually bought my own dragon, so now I also have a shoulder dragon, but this is the story why I needed a dragon in my steampunk setup. And not only did I include a dragon into the setup, I also gave it a very prominent spot where I can always see it no matter what week I'm in. As you can see, I like to set up all my weekly spread in the same manner, and the method that I use is the Alistair method. From all the different layouts I have tested out so far, this one has worked best for me, and I don't see any reason why I should change it up if it works well. If you want to see how exactly this method works, I recommend you to check out my September Plan With Me video, where I have explained in detail how the method works. But in short, it is a master to-do list for the week where you just jot down all your to-dos, one below the other, and then you allot each to-do to a specific day by just drawing a bullet into the same line into the column of the respective day. It has a lot of advantages. For example, it accommodates recurring tasks very well because you can just put several bullets into the columns of several days of the same line. or you can also visualize the process of a task being made. In addition to the master to-do list though, I always also need room for notes because I take notes every day. And I solved this by just adding another page for each week just for notes. The room of the notes page is usually fine for a week. For the task list, however, it is always a little tight, and usually I start going into a second row with my tasks because one page is not actually enough. So I still have to work out a solution for this problem. By the way, if you enjoy this less drawing and more crafty collaging sort of style, consider checking out my last 2 videos. One shows how I set up this journal that I'm using right now, and the other one was my January setup where I also worked with paper cutouts, but that time in the theme of one of my favorite computer games, Don't Starve Together. And the very last spread of my setup is going to be a daily review page. To change up the look a little bit compared to the previous pages, I just tried to use the stencil and the distress ink to create a border for the double spread. The last 1.5 months I have not really been good at actually using my daily review page. But I do love journaling and I do love recording the highlights or certain thoughts or feelings that I experience throughout a day. So I thought I'd give myself another chance to see if I can get back to using the daily review spread in February. If that still doesn't work out, then I will have to change things up and try out a new format for the journaling part of the bullet journaling. So of course the term daily review doesn't sound very appropriate for the 19th century, I think. So I decided to just change up the header into Dear Diary. I hope you enjoyed this video and to see how my different spreads came out. I didn't pre-plan any of this, I just prepared some materials, put them next to my desk, and then just started working. So it is truly a product out of the creativity of the moment, so tell me what you think in the comments. And I wish you all a wintry February.